Hi everyone, it's Sally, and today I'm going to be talking you through the stress container model, which explains our deeply unique experience of stress. I'm going to talk you through why Sarah might be thriving while Amy is struggling, and Amy might be thriving while Michelle is struggling, even when faced with the exact same level of stress. So let's get started. We all have a stress container, and some of us have larger stress containers like Sarah. Some of us might have a smaller stress container like Michelle. And of course, these can vary in size as we face different adversities and things in our lives. But broadly speaking, we have a maximum stress capacity, and some of us have a higher threshold and some of us have a lower threshold. Now, we all lead complex lives, so we know that stress can come from anywhere. So if we take Amy in the middle, for example, Amy might be experiencing some kind of work-related stress, whether that's deadlines or whether that's workload, and that stress starts to flow into her container. She might also be experiencing stress with family, whether that's caring for elderly parents or children. And we also have relationships, friends as well. And those relationships we need to manage too. From time to time, we might be worried about finances. We know the cost of living is very, very real for people. And then we might have small everyday stresses, things like being 5 minutes late to a meeting because the previous one overran. It could be we've been stuck in traffic today, that we got blocked into our driveway. And then we might stick on the news and we hear a horrible story. We worry about climate change. We worry about various events that are going on in the world as well. As I look at the stresses in Amy's container, Amy's really starting to fill up. If I look at Michelle's stress container, well, actually at this point, she'd probably be overflowing. She wouldn't be coping at this point. Whereas if we look at Sarah, well, Sarah's stress container, she'd probably still have quite a lot of capacity to be dealing with this stress as well. Now, when it comes to stress management, it's really important that we don't get to this point of overflow. For Michelle, it's going to be really important for her to consider her coping strategies. Now, coping strategies can vary. Of course, we might be able to go for a walk or go for a run or engage in a hobby or an interest, or it might be that we need to speak to somebody or we need to ask for help, or we're looking at our priority list. It really does depend what that stress is. We can consider what those coping strategies are, what those look like for us, and what's going to be important to ensure that we aren't tipping over. Because as soon as we're overflowing here, that's when poor mental health can start to arise. That is really when problems can start to develop. And if that goes unaddressed, that could lead to a diagnosable mental health condition like depression, or it could be an eating disorder. But equally, there's a lot of research around stress and long-term issues with our physical health. So things like cardiovascular disease, gastrointestinal issues, and immunosuppressive disorders as well. So we want to do as much as we possibly can to keep the stresses in our container, keep them managed without that level of overflow. So let's say that Amy starts to engage with a coping strategy, so that Amy is able to manage her stresses, whether that's talking to a friend or a family member or engaging in a hobby or an interest. It's fair to say there's lots of different coping strategies available to us, but clearly engaging in helpful ones can help us to manage those stresses. But I've just popped something in there to block the stress container because ultimately we know there are unhelpful coping strategies as well. So sometimes people move to drink and maybe other substances. Some people don't talk about things and bottle it up. It doesn't suit them to speak about it. Journaling could suit them better. Again, that could help to release the stress from the container. But if they choose not to do that, they're not talking about how they're feeling, maybe they're ignoring it, burying their heads in the sand, that could start to become unhelpful. And if that becomes blocked up, there's nowhere for the stress to go. The stress container could keep filling up and getting to that point of overflow. So I hope that helps to explain why our experience of stress is so deeply unique, why somebody might be completely stressed out while another person is thriving, even when faced with the exact same pressure and stresses. We might see the adversity that people are experiencing. We might see the stress. We may feel like, I don't understand it, I don't get it, but that doesn't matter because what we're not seeing is the size of their container. We're not seeing their stress capacity. I hope that's helpful to you. And remember, lead with love and take care.